Hi there! Welcome to Urbinary, the podcast cataloging the everyday and extraordinary in the city.
Hello, I'm Giulia, and today I'm here with Delara and Davide Ponzini, who is a professor of urban planning and also the director of the Tau Lab at Politecnico di Milano, whose main research focus on planning theory, urban and cultural policy, as well as architectural design and heritage preservation. Today, in our episode, we will dig into the world of mega events, and we will explore their nature and also their dynamic relationship between these events and their host cities, and also the resulting impacts of these events. Additionally, we will explore the intricate interplay between various stakeholders, including governments, planners, and local communities, as they contend with conflict interests when it comes to hosting mega events in heritage-rich cities.
Urbinary.
Before we dive into our episode, we want to share a bit more about Davide. He has obtained his PhD in urban planning from Politecnico di Milano, and in 2004 was a research affiliate at Yale University and an international fellow in urban studies at Johns Hopkins University in 2006. More recently, he was a visiting professor at TU Munich. With over 20 years of experience, he has directed various research projects, including the Learning from Gulf Cities initiative with Harvey Molotok, and also the award-winning European research project HOME, Heritage Opportunities and Threats in Mega Events in Europe. Alongside teaching at Politecnico di Milano, Davide has delivered lectures, seminars, and workshops at universities in Europe, North America, and in the Middle East. Moreover, he has published 12 books, including his 2020 book titled Transnational Architecture and Urbanism: Rethinking How Cities Plan, Transform, and Learn. Thank you, Davide, for being here, and then I'll turn it over to Delara.
Urbinary.
Thanks, Julia. Hi, Davide. We are so excited to have you joining us in the Poly Radio studio today.
Hello.
Well, I would like to start with a general question of what exactly mega events are and what fascinates you most about them, why they've become such a significant topic of study, especially in the field of urban planning.
In my view, mega events like the Olympics, the Expo, or the European Capital of Culture are amplifiers of urban politics and of urban planning. They tend to accelerate processes to make power and money available to decision makers, with a typical mandate of improving the urban and regional conditions, and with the great promise of substantial change within a very short period of time. So these accelerations may be good or bad, depending on the situation and, of course, on the perspective that one has on urban change.
You've been studying mega events for years, and for sure the relationship and dynamics between mega events and their hosting cities have undergone a lot of transformation. Could you elaborate on these changes and narratives towards mega events over the past years?
Yes, in the past, many cities used mega events to support capital and revenue investments and to boost tourism, to make their image more visible internationally while harnessing their competitiveness on the global stage. Until recently, the emphasis has been placed on the creation of new infrastructural elements, for example, new stadiums or other public facilities to host the events. In many instances, on the contrary, today, mega events organizers have opted for the reuse of existing facilities, for the conversion of inner city areas or the regeneration of neighborhoods. For heritage-rich cities, for the historic city centers of Europe, so to say, this shift in paradigm represents both an opportunity, but also a threat.
Let's talk about one of your projects. I know that recently you've been working on a research project called HOME. As the research leader of the HOME project, could you provide some insights into the project's objectives and also the outcomes that you aim to achieve in exploring heritage cities and their values?
Yes. HOME stands for Heritage Opportunities and Threats within Mega Events in Europe. It was a 3-year-long project financed by the JPI European program. And the project brought together leading research centers, including Politecnico di Milano, Hull University in the UK, the International Culture Center in Poland, and the Neapolis University in Paphos, Cyprus. We work together in the fields of cultural heritage and preservation, as well as mega event planning, obviously, in close contact with key institutions and policy officers who, at that time, have already had or were going to have direct responsibility for planning and implementing mega events in Europe. So the project investigated both past events and ongoing events, like the Matera European Capital of Culture of 2019. And we developed with the policymakers new policy tools for dealing with the emerging opportunities and threats in planning, in implementing, and in managing the legacy of mega events in heritage-rich cities. In doing so, we developed a charter called the Charter for Mega Events in Heritage-Rich Cities. We, in fact, collected dozens of endorsers involving networks of literally thousands of cities in Europe, but today also beyond Europe. And finally, also the European Commission gave a European Heritage Award, Europa Nostra Award, to the project in 2022 in the category of research, and we are very proud of the project's impact.
Thank you for your initial thoughts and also sharing with us about HOMI project. I've learned during my studies that mega events can be major drivers of economic growth, but also there are some concerns about their possible negative social and environmental impacts. Based on your experience, how can mega events be more sustainable and inclusive, especially in terms of inclusiveness? What strategies do you think can be implemented in the planning process to sort of enhance this local community involvement and to encourage more active participation during the whole phase of mega events?
This is a very important topic, and it became politically very hot recently. Within the HOMI research project, we worked with the stakeholders and the decision makers, and we engaged with local communities across Europe. In doing so, we learned a lot. And we try to encapsulate our learnings into the Charter for Mega Events in Heritage-Rich Cities I mentioned before. And the idea was to help cities dealing with the future mega events. To do that, we developed four themes. The first is Context Matters. The second is Planning Legacies. The third is Inclusive Governance. And finally, the fourth is Communities and Identities. This is to say that we explicitly suggested cities to think of their specificities, local specificities, to plan the mega events in the long term with a long-term vision, and also to include, since the beginning, different actors, for example, the heritage-related interest groups and even institutional powers at the very early stage. And this is also important to say that the identities and communities involved typically in the development of a plan for mega event are key to articulate the impact, but also the importance of those mega events. Specifically, we had 3-4 recommendations for each of those 4 themes, and I would like to maybe highlight a couple of them. We suggested to engage local communities, but avoid overpromising or minimizing their decision-making power, so as not to let down, so to say, the community as the process goes on and may go in very tight schedules. Also to address criticalities and mitigate social and political conflict with complementary policies, so not to think only to the delivery of the mega event, but also to other policies that may balance out the, in fact, unbalances that large-scale projects may bring about.
Thank you so much. Speaking of negative consequences, what about tourism? I remember during the course I had with you, we talked a lot about the adverse consequences of mega events such as over-tourism or declining tourism. How can the planning process be optimized, in your opinion, to mitigate these potential negative impacts, at the same time is still harnessing the boost to tourism?
As I mentioned, mega events are processes where you can see accelerated urban dynamics. And of course, a lot of tourists in a short time frame, within a small spatial framework, of course, they can be disruptive. especially if you think about historic city centers in Europe. This may create, in fact, the imbalances we just talked about. In the charter we developed with the HOMI project, we recommended city actors, for example, to spread out the locations in order to avoid the overuse or the overcrowding of iconic sites. Or, for example, city players should align mega events planning within spatial visions that are broader than the sole sites of the mega events and much longer in terms of the time frame than the specific delivery of the mega event. And of course, the point is, in our view, also to think about the legacy. And tourism is typically a very important legacy for mega events. In fact, in many cases, is what the cities aim for when they bid for the mega event. And so to think the year after or the years after is very important in our view. Of course, there are quite different ways of doing things, and we don't assume that the charter, in fact, is magic and can transform everything. So in a way, we explicitly say that we don't know in all cases how to contextualize those recommendations in specific situations, but we see that the local actors are in fact intelligent. They can learn as they go through the planning process, and so these local actors, rather than the international experts, ourselves included, are the real protagonists of mega event planning, and especially they have to deal with tourism in a very careful manner. As we know, in many Italian cities, for example, we see the disruptive effects of over-tourism.
I would like to go a bit more into detail, go back a bit with respect to the challenges that heritage cities specifically face. What is the role of urban planners and policymakers in striking a balance between the capitalization on the opportunities that are presented by mega events and also preservation and protection of the integrity of heritage sites?
Yes, as I said, we suggest very much, as we learn from the past case studies, and we also engage with the ongoing mega events as we did our research. We suggest to focus on the specificities of context rather than simply, parachute a large set of investments. And again, second, to work for the long term. So to plan for the legacies and not just the delivery of the mega event. And of course, one way to mitigate the effects of those mega events is in fact to engage with the heritage actors since the beginning, rather than wait until last minute when, in some cases, for example, Italy, those heritage actors may have the power of stopping some of the projects. So our suggestion is in fact to engage as early as possible and in fact change some of the characteristics or the features of plans and projects in order to better respond to local heritage. Also, we explicitly said that heritage is not just what is officially recognized as such, but it also engages and entails broader meanings, intangible elements of how people live in a city and different communities. So we see those recommendations as ways for policymakers to not only take the opportunity for growth and for development of a city, but also to see that as an evolution that is consistent with its heritage, with its places, and beneficial to many communities and not just a few actors.
Thank you so much. As we come to the end of our discussion, I would like to reflect also on the different levels of support and skepticism that mega events experience. Since we've seen instances where mega events receive support from both national and local governments, as well as, of course, communities, but over the past years, there's been a sort of growing sense of distrust, mainly from the locals, as we've seen in Germany, for example, where citizens in Hamburg and Berlin decided against hosting the Olympics through some referendum in 2015. I'm quite curious and interested to hear your perspective on the future trend and narratives regarding mega events, especially with the upcoming Winter Olympics that we're going to have in Milano Cortina, which is scheduled for 2026.
Yeah, what you say is true and very serious. I think that mega event organizers today understood that they had to be more sustainable and promote less costly events. First and foremost, to encounter less oppositions that, in fact, Olympics, but also other mega events encountered in recent years. And today, sustainability and reuse of facilities are already present in the official narratives. If you think of the Olympics today, they in fact deliver a strong sustainability message, at least in their narrative. The Milano Cortina Winter Olympics mega event is in fact quite challenging. It mobilizes a very vast mega region in northern Italy, and it is going to, be present in very sensitive sites, mountain areas especially. And in my view, the special vision and the cultural policies that are often complementary to those events, think of the Cultural Olympiad, they are quite important in supporting such mega events and especially to build political consensus in their favor. So considering that there are less than 3 years left, they are quite late and to me, it seems to me today, that is, of course, June 2023. With the Tau Lab, we developed the Mega Events and the City project, financed by the urban center of the city of Milan and the Triennale of Milan. We developed that project in order to spark the debate and try to streamline certain messages that are now more obvious, more evident and debated in international debates, but perhaps may be beneficial for the local debate in Milan towards the 2026 Winter Olympics. And if I may add, in the YouTube channel of the Tau Lab of Politecnico di Milano, you will find many videos that we generated through that mega events and the city project.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you, Davide, again for talking with us today about this fascinating world of mega events and, of course, their transformative nature. It was great to explore this complex, I would say, interplay between mega events and urban planning.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
So before we close our conversation, I would like to ask you, what do you think about city today, and what will be the future of our cities?
So cities today are more and more connected to one another. As you probably know, ideas, policies, plans, projects, and expertise, like the one of planners, travel from one place to another very rapidly. They circulate internationally. I think this affects urban development as well as the ways in which we understand and govern cities very much. I am the director of a research unit dedicated to transnational architecture and urbanism here at Politecnico di Milano, and we study these dynamics from multiple points of view. For example, we analyze how the same mega event format lands in different places, as we discussed today. And at the same time, I see that people are exposed to these transnational policies and narratives, and their path in life often goes through multiple cities and different countries. So in my view today, cities and places are transnational, and in multiple ways they are so. I think the future will lead to a higher level of connectiveness and higher speed in these exchanges and travels and migration. So I think transnationality is an important component of for the understanding of contemporary cities, of course, among many others.
Okay, thank you. So as we in the future will be urban planner, hopefully, we would like to ask you some advices on what we should reflect on in terms of planning the future of our cities.
Yes, of course, this is a very vast field, And if I stick to what I just said, I think that planners will need to be able to understand those global trends and global problems like climate change and mass migrations, as well as to see more specifically how specific transnational agencies and interventions work. And they work, of course, differently in different cities as they land, and they interact with different places, and they engage with different interest groups and communities. So among many other things, I think that a critical understanding of these connections is key for the urban planners of the future.
Thanks again, Delara, and thanks again, Davide. This is Urbinary, a collaboration with Poliradio. In the next episode, we will discuss with Valerie and Giancarlo Vecchi on how digital technologies are impacting our cities. We will observe this from the perspective of public administration and policies.
Urbinary, the podcast cataloging the everyday and extraordinary in the city.